The conversation of best player available versus drafting off of need for the Carolina Panthers fan base the last couple weeks has been warranted. Linebacker, edge rusher, still very big needs on this roster heading into free agency here in the next coming weeks. But there's also positions like receiver, safety, tight end, cornerback, where you feel like you can still add a lot of talent to those positions and bolster this roster even more this upcoming offseason. There's so much talent in this draft class, right? No matter what you do in free agency, this topic comes up because you can even sign one of the best linebackers in free agency, like a Quay Walker, Devin Lloyd, or even a Caden Ellis. You can still go out there and say, you know what? A linebacker is one of the best players at 19 based off our value and still take him at 19. And that's when the topic comes up on, do you go best player available at 19 or do you draft just based off need? What happens in free agency? And before we head into the Panthers topic in specific, I do want to head into kind of comparing some of the best teams the last couple of seasons, specifically the Eagles. We all know, man, the Eagles will probably have the best roster top down when it comes to depth, when it comes to the starters, all everything. They won a Super Bowl last year as well against the Chiefs very dominantly as well. We know the Eagles have one of the best rosters in the NFL, okay? And I want to compare the Panthers, how the Panthers have been drafting the last couple of seasons compared to how the Eagles have been drafting over the past couple of seasons to get them where they are now. And it's a little different, okay? It's a little different. The Panthers have had actual success in the first round drafting last couple of years, last 5 years. The Eagles have had success past the first round, okay? And it's weird because they also draft best player available, not only the first round, but second round, third round. Okay, just based off how the Eagles have been drafting since 2020, last 6 seasons, 6 draft classes. This is how they've been drafting in the first and second round. Okay. 2020, Jalen Rager, receiver, Jalen Hurts, quarterback. Okay. This is when they just started the rebuild. Obviously, that's not going to make too much of an impact there. Okay. But now starting in 2021, you're going to see a trend now. 2021, Devontae Smith, receiver, back-to-back first-round picks for receiver. Okay. Landon Dickerson. 2022, Jordan Davis and Cam Jurgens. Okay. And now we head into more of the defensive heavy draft classes. 2023 did not have a second round pick. They drafted Jalen Carter in the first round. You can tell, again, back to back defensive tackles, 2022, 2023. First, second round picks were cornerbacks, Quiniana Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. 2025, Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Alabama, and then Andrew Makuba, the safety. You guys take a look at that one more time. You go back and pause it if you guys would like. Let me know what you guys can notice based off of that graphic. There's a lot of the same positions. Okay, specifically on defense since 2022 to 2025, the last 4 draft classes, the Eagles have drafted 6 out of 7 guys were defensive players. 2022, 2023, first round picks were defensive tackles. Jordan Davis, a lot of teams see Jordan Davis, you draft him that high in the first round. He's a defensive tackle. Man, 2023, let's go out there and get a different position because we believe he can develop. When you look at the Panthers, right, obviously drafting certain positions the last couple of years, they don't go back to it until next couple seasons. Like DJ Moore, which I'll touch on the graphic here in a second as well with the Panthers. You did not go back to receiver in the first 2 rounds until 2023. Okay. 2023, granted, you had guys like Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson. You had a good, good receiver core, but you didn't have enough, I felt like, to become contenders. You didn't win a lot of games, right? You didn't win a lot of games. You didn't do enough, which my point is stands with the best player available. The best teams do that. The best teams say, I don't care what we have right now. I don't care what we did in the past. I don't care. I don't care. Dan Morgan said it best. I could play his clip right here, but he said it in his press conference in the combine about a week ago. He pretty much said what I'm saying right now, which is we value best player available. If everything balanced out, we would go based off need. But if you still have positions of need still and the draft class is this deep, you go best player available in the first round, the second round, because of the fact that you never know when you're going to need those positions. You never know when you're going to need the depth at linebacker. You're never gonna know if you need depth at receiver, which is why a lot of people don't want to say, hey, let's go Mekhi Lemon at pick 19 if he falls, because they feel like there's other needs and other big needs on the team, which I would agree with. But if you're trying to build a Super Bowl contender, which kind of ties into my biggest theme of the video, is you need to go best player available no matter what. Because you look at the Eagles, right? As we go back to the graphic here, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, they could have said, you know what, 2023, we drafted Jordan Davis last year. He has time to develop, and guess what? He's turned into a dog, by the way. 2023, he was a dog player, but he only played 5 games in 2022, right? So they said, you know what? Jalen Carter is a beast of a player. We're going to take him in the first round. I don't care. We just drafted defensive tackle last year. We're going to take him there. 2024, Quiniana Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, back-to-back cornerbacks. when they had Darius Slay still on the roster. They had guys like Avonte Maddox, Darius Slay. They had these good corners back in 2023 that you're bringing back to 2024. Guess what? It didn't matter because those two corners are now starting for the Eagles today in 2026, right? The best teams build off of best player available, because at the end of the day, if you sat right here and asked me as a GM, would you rather take this positional need right now in the first round and hope he, gets banked on and hope he's really good? Or do you want to take the player that you thought was the 10th best player on your board at 19, even though it's a left tackle, even though it's a guy like a Monroe Freeling, who, in my opinion, I believe the Panthers should consider because of the fact that you don't know what's going to be with Taylor Moton next year. You don't know how it's going to work. He's making a lot of money. You don't know if you want to get off that contract. You don't know how Iggy's going to get back from injury. You never know. If you think Monroe Freeling is one of the best players in this draft class, which honestly, you look at the film, he might be. If you're Dan Morgan, you consider that. You consider taking a guy like Monroe Freeling at 19, no matter if you need tackle or not right now, no matter if you need edge rusher more, no matter if you need linebacker more, it doesn't matter. Okay. If you believe a safety, a cornerback is worth the 19 pick because you have him in your top 10 on your big board and you say, I don't know where Mike Jackson's going to be next year. I don't know if we're going to be signing Mike Jackson, right? Yes, we have JC and Mike Jackson for 2026, but 2027, who do we have as the next corner for JC Horn? You never know. So, as a front office, you go best player available every single time in the first, second round, no matter what you did. You could even double stack, which is why I like what Dan Morgan did with Jonathan Brooks in 2024, right? Everybody was like, Jonathan Brooks why would you take a running back in the second round? You have too many needs. You don't think that way. When you're a GM, you think of best player available. Chuba Hubbard had 1,000 yards, yes, but you see the Lions have a 1-2 punch out at running back. That's the thought that Dan Morgan had, which there's still a chance that we can run that this year if he's healthy with the ACL tear, right? And then obviously taking back-to-back edge rushers with Nick Scorn and Princely this past draft in the second, third round. Dan Morgan's done a good job taking best player available based off, and he's done a little bit of need as well. But T-Mac, taking him in the first round last year, we could easily said Jalen Walker or James Pierce is our guy. We need edge rusher more than receiver because XL can develop, right? They didn't believe that. They believed receiver was a bigger need than we thought, and we believed it. If we did not take T-Mac, receiver would have been absolutely fried this year. We would have been relying on XL the entire season. It would not have went well. We were underestimating that draft pick, by the way, more and more as we kind of, go further into Dan Morgan's tenure. But you guys see what I'm saying, right? So the thought process of best player available versus need, it's very simple. You go best player available. If you believe a certain player has a talent to go to 19 and you have him hired on your big board, but it's a cornerback that you don't think you need this season right away more than you do edge rusher, linebacker, even defensive tackle is a position that you could even add next to Derek Brown. There's a lot of talent you could add to a team, specifically this team. We have so many great players, but there's so many missing pieces. If you really want to build a really championship caliber roster, you need to go best player available every draft. Every first round pick you have, if it's pick 30, whatever, pick, second round pick, it doesn't matter. Clearly it works. You look at the Eagles, it clearly works, right? 6 out of the last 7 players in the last 4 drafts are defensive players, and almost all those players are starters, right? Jahad Campbell, dude, you have 2 starting linebackers, and you drafted him last year at Alabama. Why? Because he's one of the best linebackers in the draft class. I wanted the Panthers to draft him. The Eagles don't play around when it comes to best player available versus need. They don't care, right? They don't care. And the reason why they got this far is because since 2020, they've done that. They've done that. They don't care about positional need. They don't care about that. They say, who's the best player right now on our board? Everybody that's still available, who's the best on our board? And I need Dan Morgan to do the same thing because that's what's going to get us from, being 8-9, getting in the wild card game, winning 12 games and being a contender in hopefully 2026, maybe 2027. That's the goal of this team for the Carolina Panthers, is getting that far. Okay, so kind of now touching on what would best player available look like for the Panthers. Not talking about linebacker, not talking about edge rusher, because those are obvious needs, right? We're going to say those names because of the fact that we need those positions, right? But what does best player available for the Panthers look like in April? Okay, as I mentioned, Mekhi Lemon, one of the best receivers in this draft class, in my opinion. I think he is the second best receiver in this draft class, honestly, with Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson are tied. And then you can have Carnell Tate, or not Carnell Tate, sorry. Then you can have Mekhi Lemon there at 3 or 2. It doesn't matter. I think you can flip-flop him and Jordan Tyson for that second best receiver spot just because of the fact that he's one of the best slot receivers. He reminds me of Emeka Buka coming out of college last year. Simple as that. And a lot of people are going to think I'm wrong about that, but when you look at his tape, he has a slot ability as much as Emeka Buka did in college and how he does now with Tampa Bay. Okay, that's the first part. is Mekhi Lemon. That would be best player available pick. You say, I think he could level up this receiving core even more. And again, you could see a lot of people on Twitter, everywhere else saying, why would we take a receiver? There's bigger needs. Doesn't matter. You look at the best teams in the league that are winning Super Bowls and winning playoff games, they draft based off of best player available. They do not care if we already have T-Mac and Jalen Coker. We don't care. We're going to continue to add. Look at the Buccaneers, right? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. They're getting older, right? But you could have said, let's ride it out for a little bit. No, they took Emeka Buka because they thought he was one of the best receivers in the draft class last year. So they took him. They did not care. They thought he was one of the best players on their board, and in the draft class at that position, they took him, and look how he turned out. The best teams don't care about need. Okay, they don't, especially in the first couple rounds. They don't care about need because you're drafting in the first round for best players. You're drafted in the first round for best players. When you get to the fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, then you can start considering need because now you filled out your first three picks in terms of best players on your board specifically. In my opinion, for 19, a cornerback like Mansour Lane, a Jamal McCoy if he falls because of that ACL that he had, the ACL injury. Those are one of the two best players in the draft class. Simple as that. Mansour Lane and Jamal McCoy, one of the best cover corners in this draft class. Both of them are. One of them could fall to 19, right? Because this corner class is not getting enough love as it should because of injuries and stuff like that from both those players. But that would be another one, right? A lot of people don't want to take in corner because we have Mike Jackson, J.C. Horn. After those two, who do we have? Right? And is it a guarantee that Mike Jackson comes back next year? No. Even if he doesn't sign with us, there's a chance he doesn't do that, even if we trade him. Right? JC Horn is who we're relying on, right? As a front office, you need to think about who, as of next season, let's think about next season. Who are we for sure knows going to be here next season? Okay. JC Horn at corner. That's it. That's the only one that you are positive. Shaw Smith-Wade hasn't done anything in his career so far. Obviously, Mike Jackson on his last year of his contract. There's too much ifs and just what's going to happen with this position that you could consider if you really believe that one of these players are one of the best at their position. You take it. You simply take it. And then lastly, as I mentioned, with best player available would be Monroe Freeling out of Georgia, the left tackle. This one's easy. As you guys know, left tackle, Icky's out for the whole season next year. So do you want to rely on Yosh Nijman? Do you want to rely on a left tackle that isn't serviceable all year, especially what if he gets injured, right? It's just going to get tricky with that position, especially because you've seen the injury history with our entire line besides Taylor Moton. Not even that, though. Taylor Moton's old. He's making a lot of money. What are you going to do with that in the future? Next season, is he going to be your right tackle, right? And you can think about the future like this. When Icky comes back next year, you draft Monroe Freeling. If he falls to 19, you can move Icky to right tackle, right? Because Monroe Freeling is one of the best tackles when it comes to everything, run blocking and pass blocking. I think he's better than Nicky in terms of pass blocking for sure. But you can move around, right? You have your two guards right there with Damian Lewis, Robert Hunt. Your left tackle is important. Your left tackle is important, okay? And a lot of people are flying by that just because I've been injured for one season. You draft best player available. If you think Monroe Freeling, if he falls to 19 and you're as a team, you think he's a top 7 player in this draft class based off film, you take that player. You take that player. Okay. And then obviously for agency, you fill those gaps in. Do we have a lot of cap space? No. But that's why you build off the draft. You don't just get greedy and say, we need this position. Let's hope that this player is better than we think. We think he's number 22 on our board. We drafted 19. Number 7 guy's still out there, but we don't need that position. Let's just go with the need and hope he's better than, the number 7 best player on our board. No, you have to go with your gut and go with the best player available. Okay. So this video was a lot, but I kind of wanted to show you guys a difference between the Eagles and us and kind of show you guys some scenarios where best player available would be involved. Obviously, safety as well would be one. Kenyon Sadiq, I would say, tight end's a bigger position than we think, obviously, so that's probably would be more of a need. But Kenyon Sadiq is one of the best players in this draft class. We saw it at the combine. Turn the film on; it's really simple what he is as a tight end, but he's not falling to 19. He's too good of a player to probably fall to 19. Yeah, just showing you guys the Eagles how they've been able to draft, and they're one of the best teams in the league the last couple of years in the NFL. And the Panthers should do the same thing. Best player available should be on their mind every single season. First, second round does not matter. So for the Panthers, that's what we gotta do. That's what we gotta do. If you're Dan Morgan, if you're watching this video, doubt it. But if you're watching this video, man, go best player available. Whoever, who's ever the highest on your board, and you want that player because he's that good at 19, take him. Take him. Because this is clearly the winning formula. Okay. Doesn't matter the position. Doesn't matter. Take him. right? So if you guys are new, subscribe for me, like this video, y'all. We're staying consistent. Obviously, we're probably gonna go live here this weekend, do our second round scenarios, as I did my live stream last Saturday as well for my first round scenarios. So if you guys are new, subscribe for me. I'm gonna be going live consistently, dropping videos consistently for you guys as free agency comes up as well. So y'all do that for me. If that being said, I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace. Keep pounding.